and welcome to another edition of Trader Talk TV. Today I'm joined by Matt O'Neill, General Manager at the Media Trust. Thanks for coming, Matt.
My pleasure. Nice to be here.
And could you just start off by telling us a little bit about what the Media Trust do?
Yeah, the Media Trust is a company that helps publishers and others in the ad ecosystem ensure that they have high quality advertising and provide security against malware, malvertising, and other malicious aspects of the ad ecosystem.
And what exactly is malware?
So malware, in the broadest sense, is code or a program that does something other than what is intended or advertised as the function of that program. So for instance, if you download a toolbar onto your computer that helps you search, but in the background that toolbar is loading, say, a keylogger that tracks all the things you type onto your computer, that would be a piece of malware. It could be a piece of JavaScript that will redirect you to a page other than what you've clicked on. So really anything that is happening behind the scenes that is negative for the user experience.
And not what you expected it to do.
Correct, that's right.
And where does malware come from?
Malware comes from a few different places. Historically, going way back, it was originally almost like a can I do it type experiment. Like, can I write a piece of code that will self-propagate through email to 10 million people?
Techie people having fun.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Seeing what they can do with it. You know, there were a bunch back in 1999 that would say like Happy New Year. And then people would start to use them for distributed denial of service attacks, where you could all of a sudden sort of flood a certain domain or a certain IP address with a bunch of hits taking down the website. Nowadays, though, malware actually comes from very, very sophisticated professionals who are in it for the money, and there is a lot of money behind it. We will talk in a bit about some of the different reasons people put malware out there, but right now the majority of what's happening is coming from professional bad guys.
Right. And what's the link between malware and advertising, or what we refer to as malvertising?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so malware is the general description of bad stuff that's happening that you don't want to have happening, whereas malvertising is just almost a fancy word for saying malware delivered through advertising. So it would be anything that is exploiting the ad network as a vector for the delivery of malvertising. So it could be JavaScript, it could be an iframe, it could be an image itself. There's all sorts of ways that it can be hijacked to deliver bad stuff onto the user's computer. And as we all know, we've got a very, very complex ecosystem out there with lots of demand partners, supply partners, exchanges, buyers, sellers, etc., all of whom can easily be spoofed as a bad guy in that ecosystem. So malvertising is advertising that is delivering malware. Okay.
And can that be delivered at any point in the chain? So if there are more suppliers, does it make it higher risk?
That's a great question. Yeah, it certainly makes it more likely that something bad might happen. If you and I go out for lunch, I know you, you know me, we have our lunch, it's all very nice, but if you start inviting your friends, there's I might not know some of them, and there may be some problems there. But then if all of a sudden we just sort of invite anyone we want, we might want some security on the door. So the wider you throw these nets, the more likely that something bad might happen is coming in. And we see call chains, which are essentially all of the steps involved from the advertiser to the user's browser. Some of them are 300, 400 steps long, and there are a lot of opportunities for bad stuff to come in there. In general, publisher sites, 20% of the code on that site is controlled by the publisher. 80% of the code on that site is controlled by someone else. Mm-hmm. Who it is TBD. I mean, it might be your content management system. It might be an ad network. It might be someone delivering JavaScript and dropping a cookie on your site. So there's a lot of unknown players in that ecosystem, and each one of those is a potential doorway for a bad guy to come in. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the more complex, the more likely something bad might be coming in.
And what can advertisers, publishers, tech players do to A, try and prevent the spread of malvertising, mm-hmm. but B, audit, identify, and stop it happening again?
Yeah, so advertisers are fairly clean in this equation, and sadly, publishers are quite clean too, because publishers won't be creating this stuff. But what advertisers could be doing that could be really useful is essentially asking their agencies to pre-scan the creatives before they enter that ecosystem. I'm obviously American. I come to the UK a lot, so I've registered with the Registered Traveler Program. And that means that I get to come into Heathrow or Gatwick and bypass the huge EU line or non-EU line and go through the fast track or go through the electronic scanning because I have submitted myself to some pre-scanning, to being vetted, so they know that I'm not a bad actor and I get to go through that. Well, if agencies and advertisers took their creative and did something very similar and pre-scanned it could enter the ecosystem through a similar type of fast track. So
And can people then change that creative when it goes through? So once it's stamped, essentially, can people then hack into it or change it?
Right. Yeah. So there's two parts to that really. The first is that the individual creative would be the thing being validated. So the creative itself would have an MD5 checksum, meaning we look at the ad, we essentially take a mugshot of that ad. We say, okay, this is known, it's good. It's taking an iris shot if you are coming through. If I swap my irises, you'd have to take another shot of that. So it happens at the creative level, and the creative ID that's being passed around that ecosystem is the thing that is being tied back to the known good actor. We can talk in a second about the swapping of creative and how that's a bad thing for publishers and networks in an increasingly programmatic world. But yeah, so this would happen at the creative level. It would get scanned, it would get passed along. And what that would mean is that, and this isn't happening yet, but this is down the road, exchanges, networks, publishers, they could actually be looking for creative that has been pre-certified as it enters the ecosystem, and they can know that this is a good actor, whether it's coming in through a direct channel or whether it's coming in through a programmatic channel. It essentially is being blessed by the creative pre-scanning. Now, to your question about the creative, this is where we actually first started to see malware come on the scene. Media Trust 12 years ago, what we were doing was essentially scanning an ad tag for a publisher, rendering it on their site, and verifying that it delivered. So the publisher could say, hey, Mr. Advertiser, here's your ad running on the women's page of The Guardian last Saturday. And so it was there, and it was verified, and it was clear. But what happened when that relationship started to go beyond the direct advertiser to publisher and open out to networks and open out to exchanges and SSPs, etc., is we started to see strange things happening. You'd see toolbars, you'd see pop-ups, you'd see malware, you'd see infections coming up from all over the place. And that's because as you have a single tag that is out there fetching different creative, there's no way to essentially pre-scan it, and you are opening up your supply pool to a huge group of unknown demand partners. And those demand partners can very easily buy seats on the exchanges. So that's where that stuff was coming in. We'd see, you might have a syndicate from some dodgy place, and they're buying a seat on an exchange, and they're calling themselves, Agency 123. And they can go in and bid 50 cents, and they can target women 18:35, 11 p.m. till 2 a.m. in London and deliver malware. And because they know that those people will be least likely to have anti-malware blockers in place. They'll be the least tech savvy, and they'll come in, and they can be very, very targeted on their campaigns. It's not just this spray and pray idea that a lot of people seem to have about malware. They can do all the targeting that the good guys can do. So the creative can get swapped out and delivered, and we can see creative that's associated with malware pop up on many, many different exchanges. So the creative really becomes, in many ways, one of the key indicators of bad stuff about to happen. They'll often use the same creative across different pieces of malware across different networks. So that's a great question of how that is used as a I don't want to say a unique identifier, but certainly a big, big signal that something bad might be happening behind the scenes.
And what kind of developments do you see coming in the next year, 2 years to help combat this issue?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in terms of combating, one of the things we talked about just now was the pre-certification, but I think that having advertising teams at publishers and networks think about this as a security issue and not an advertising issue is really core. we've seen at the enterprise level that one incident of malware outbreak can cost nearly $100,000 to the enterprise. So this is like if you're running a business and someone's at their computer and they get a malware infection, that can cost that business on average about $96,000 to deal with it and remediate that problem. So it's a big problem from a security perspective, and we've got chief security officers looking at this right now and being made aware. So scanning at the enterprise level when these things come in and checking out if there's malware is really, really important. Publishers becoming educated about it. So having someone maybe on their AdOps team become a security champion, and they read Malwarebytes in the morning, and they're keeping up to date with what the current outbreaks are, and what are the solutions that are in place for scanning. Are they doing pre-scanning against all of their ads? Do their programmatic partners have scanning in place? Are they pushing back up the chain? So if you are a publisher and you're working with an SSP, have you asked your SSP, what are you doing to mitigate against malware demand coming in through your demand partners? Mm-hmm. Are they asking that question? And are they happy with the answer that they're getting? So I think a general sort of security awareness right across the ecosystem is really important. And I also think having every person bear a bit of the cost of this is really important. So whether it's the publisher who is really the cold face of the problem, right? So if you're reading a premium publication and you get malware from that, and you see in the newspaper the next morning that your title was spreading malware to millions, it's you that's getting blamed. It's not the exchange, it's not the band partner, and it's almost never the actual source of the malware. So publishers have a very strong vested interest in this, but they can't be expected to bear the brunt of the full cost, because that would mean a ridiculous amount of scanning of the creatives coming in, and it would also mean that they would have to be essentially punished for this. But if you have at every step in the chain doing a scan, you can then spread that cost out a little bit. So the demand partners are scanning what's coming in from their self-serve partners before it goes live. Supply partners are scanning the demand before it comes in. Publishers are scanning the creative before it goes live on their site. So all of a sudden you have everyone shouldering the responsibility. And a third thing would be for people to start thinking about this from a budgetary perspective, because what I've seen is when I talk to people about malware prevention, they don't know what budget that comes from. Does it come from the CIO? Does it come from the chief security officers? Does it come from AdOps? Typically it's like an AdOps expense, and they see it as a cost of doing AdOps. But I really see it like if you ran a trucking company, you'd never operate without insurance. You would have, in fact, by law, you'd have to have insurance. So it's really just a cost of doing business. And I think that as we look at an increasingly connected world, and a world where more and more devices and technology are listening to more and more unknown sources of demand, we can start to expect to see more and more of this. And just this morning, I saw that there was essentially malware delivered to a Tesla. So the malware went in and started messing with the brakes. So they were able to hack into the Tesla and do that. So when we look at the Internet of Things, you could have malware on your toaster, malware on your watch, malware in your car. We've seen every incremental technology be subject to malware as soon as it comes out. Whether it's video, we saw a huge spike in video malware coming out. We saw header bidding malware. So whatever new vector comes up, the bad guys will jump on that, right? Because it's a great way for people to sneak it in, because not everyone's aware of it. It's really untested, it's undiagnosed, and it's a great pathway to get the malware malvertising onto the user's computer. So I think vigilance and then thinking about this as a essentially a cost of business for everyone in the ecosystem needs to become more pervasive. It's a fairly new problem.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for coming in, Matt. I think that was very interesting.
Cool.
And thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Trader Talk TV.